Imagine, if you dare, a scene straight out of a feverish dream. A small town just like any other, with one exception. Its streets are alive with the relentless rhythm of hundreds of feet. Not in a joyous parade nor a harmonious flash mob, but in a bizarre marathon of inexplicable, unstoppable dancing. Welcome to Dance Till You Drop, the untold story of the dancing plague of 1518. In this very town over 500 years ago, a strange contagion took hold, one that would perplex historians and physicians alike for centuries to come. This was no ordinary plague with coughs and sneezes. No, this was a rhythmic rebellion of the body, an insidious samba, a malignant mambo. Today we're pirouetting back in time to dissect this dancing dilemma. Was it mass hysteria, a curse, or something more earthly? Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy, jumpy ride. Now let's set the scene. Strasbourg, 1518. A picturesque town that today would lure tourists with its charm, but back then, it drew in a very different kind of attention. The Renaissance is in full swing, and this is an era where superstition dances hand in hand with religion while science watches from the sidelines. Our main character isn't a noble knight or a powerful queen, but a simple woman named Frau Trophäa. She's just like any other inhabitant of Strasbourg, going about her daily life, unaware that she's about to step into history with a most unusual claim to fame. Before this strange saga unfolds, the town is serene, the people are content, and dancing is just another way to celebrate life. But then, without any apparent trigger, Frau Trophäa begins to dance. Not a dance of joy or a rehearsed routine, but a wild, relentless motion that no one can explain. She twirls and twists from morning until night, and when dawn breaks again, she's still at it, her feet pounding the cobblestones. The townsfolk are bemused at first. Laughter and banter fill the air, thinking it's a spectacle or an act of protest. Children mimic her, their laughter ringing through the streets, while their parents wager guesses on when she'll tire. She'll surely stop by evening, they muse, filling their thoughts with rational explanations for an event that's anything but. The local authorities, composed of stern-faced men in ruffled collars, watch warily, convinced this peculiar performance is merely a moment of madness, a solitary incident. It's a phase, they declare. She'll dance it out of her system. Oh, how little did they know that Frau Trophäa was just the opening act of what would become a full-blown dance marathon, a prelude to a macabre performance that would challenge everything they understood about the human body and mind. As Frau Trophäa's solitary dance turns into a grim performance of endurance, the contagion of movement spreads like wildfire. Within a week, what began as a singular spectacle spirals into a communal crisis. Strasbourg's streets, once the thoroughfare of traders and the hub of Renaissance life, now host an ever-growing troupe of involuntary dancers. The townsfolk's initial curiosity warps into concern as routines are disrupted and the spectacle overshadows daily life. But as the number of dancers swells to dozens, the scene becomes macabre. The relentless dancing grips more and more people, young and old, rich and poor, as if selecting its victims at random. The townspeople's reactions are a tapestry of the times, a blend of morbid amusement, fear, and rising panic. They gather to watch this phenomenon, their earlier chuckles turning to gasps as the dancers, driven by unseen forces, continue day and night. The once orderly town is plunged into disarray. Resources are stretched thin as the local grain stores and wells struggle to meet the demands of those afflicted, who can neither work nor tend to their basic needs. The local physicians, their practices rooted in the four humors and astrological charts, find themselves baffled. One doctor, after examining a dancer's sweat-soaked body, steps back, his face a mix of confusion and fear. "Their humors are in chaos," he mutters, "but there's no fever, no sign of disease as we know it." As weeks pass, the dance of despair deepens. The dancers, caught in their relentless reverie, suffer from broken ribs, bruised feet, and utter exhaustion. Some are whisked away, only to die from their exertions, and yet the dance continues. The air is thick with the labored breaths and cries of the afflicted, turning the town square into an open-air infirmary of the damned. The town's leaders are faced with an unprecedented dilemma. Gathered in the dim light of the council chambers, they argue long into the night. "We must ban music and festivities," suggests one. "No, we should encourage them to dance it out of their systems," argues another, recalling ancient beliefs that a good dance could resolve disordered blood. But with each passing day, the number of dancers grows, and so too does the desperation in their voices. The role of the church in this crisis cannot be overstated. With influence rivaling the local government, the clergy oscillates between compassion and condemnation. Some priests take to the pulpit, claiming the dancing is a divine judgment for the sins of the people, calling for repentance and prayer. Others, more lenient, suggest that perhaps this is a test of faith, a trial sent from God for reasons mortals cannot understand. Amidst all this, fear becomes a palpable force in Strasbourg. The whispers of the supernatural spread faster than the plague itself. Talk of demonic possession, of a cursed town takes hold. Some residents eye their neighbors with suspicion, and the night is filled with prayers as well as the constant rhythm of feet against stone. The physicians find themselves caught between their commitment to emerging scientific methods and the overwhelming tide of public superstition. While the doctors suggest imbalances in the hot and cold fluids of the body, the church's representatives speak of spiritual causes, exorcisms, and divine wrath. Tensions rise as both sides grapple with this dancing enigma, their conflict echoing the greater struggle between enlightenment and tradition that will come to define the era. As we reach the crescendo of the dancing plague of 1518, the situation in Strasbourg reaches its breaking point. The streets are filled with hundreds of dancers, their bodies writhing and jerking in an endless marathon of misery. The heavy toll of the relentless movement becomes fatal for some, with reports of deaths from heart attacks, strokes, and sheer exhaustion. The air is heavy with despair, the ground littered with the fallen. The dance has become a dance of death. In the midst of this chaos, we find heartbreaking human stories. A young man, Johann, once a robust blacksmith, now reduced to a twitching shadow of his former self. Clara, a mother of 3, dances next to the lifeless body of her husband, her tears unnoticed in the cacophony of the crowd. Each of them has a story, a life upturned by this inexplicable curse. As desperation peaks, the authorities are caught in a tumultuous conflict. Their attempts to stop the dancing are as futile as trying to hold back the tides. Theories abound, but no cure is forthcoming. Physicians plead for order, while some priests declare it's beyond human hands. Yet the dancing continues, each day sapping more life from the afflicted. In a desperate attempt to intervene, the authorities embrace an unconventional method. They decide to promote more dancing. Based on the belief that the afflicted must dance out the excess humors in their blood, they construct stages and hire musicians, hoping to expedite the process. However, this plan disastrously backfires. The music and spectacle only encourage more to join the frenzied throng, and the number of dancers grows. As the crisis spirals, the public mood turns. The once entertained crowds are now consumed by fear and desperation. Families watch in horror as their loved ones are swept into the fray, unable to stop their feet, their cries for help lost in the cacophony. Finally, the resolution begins to take shape in a blend of spiritual intervention and isolation. The solution, it seems, lies with the divine. The afflicted are taken to a mountaintop shrine, dedicated to St. Vitus, a saint believed to have power over compulsive movements. It is here, away from the turmoil of the town and immersed in the sanctity of the shrine, that the dancers are encouraged to pray and seek absolution for their perceived sins. The change does not come overnight, but gradually the mania begins to abate. Removed from the contaminated environment of the town, the dancers find their symptoms easing. One by one, the dancing slows, the exhausted bodies finding rest at last. The power of belief, combined with the separation from the stimuli of the music and the crowd, brings an end to the bizarre affliction. In the aftermath, Strasbourg tries to recover. The immediate crisis over, the town is left with a deep scar, both in the collective memory and in the lives of the survivors. Families mourn their dead, while those who danced are left to rebuild their lives, some with permanent physical and emotional scars. And now let's consider the modern theories that attempt to explain the inexplicable. Mass psychogenic illness, also known as collective hysteria, stands as a likely culprit. The idea here is that the intense stress and hardship of the time could have precipitated a physical manifestation of collective anxiety. Imagine the power of the mind so strong that it can move the body unwillingly. Another theory taps its feet to the rhythm of ergot poisoning, a fungus found on rye that can induce spasms and hallucinations. The bread in Strasbourg, a staple of the diet, could have been contaminated, turning sustenance into a trigger for trance. Lastly, some point to religious ecstasy, a trance-like state achieved during heightened religious experiences, which could have swept through the deeply spiritual populace like a spiritual wind. As we pirouette back to the present, let us marvel at the human capacity for extraordinary behaviors under extraordinary circumstances. The dancing plague of 1518 remains a historical riddle, a waltz between fact and theory, between the seen and the unseen. What do you think sparked this strange event? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this historical mystery, give us a like, hit subscribe, and join us for more curious tales from the past. Until next time, keep dancing to the beat of your own drum.